Welcome back, folks. Just for a few moments, I want to revisit this whole earmark story. So many conservatives, including myself, are really disappointed that the Republicans in the House came out in favor of restoring earmarks. It was a close vote, but they came out in favor of it. We have a hero among us, okay? A hero. Senator Rob Portman of the great state of Ohio has a press release that says, and I'm going to quote, "Instead of reviving earmarks, Congress should be pushing to ban them permanently, and I've consistently supported legislation to do so." Oh my gosh. Let us bring in Senator Rob Portman. And I got to say, Rob, you are a hero. You are a patriot. You are a great American. I'm going to give you open field running to persuade your colleagues who are undoubtedly watching this show why they must agree with you.
Three reasons. One, spending is already out of control by any measure. We have the largest debt in the history of our country. As a percent of GDP, you have to go back to 1 year after World War II. The deficit, of course, has been at historic levels the last year and likely to be again this year. It just did $1.9 trillion, so why more? Second is, where do earmarks go? They go to members because of their position in Congress, not based on the merits. In other words, if you're a chairman of a committee, particularly the Appropriations Committee, you get the lion's share of it. There's some good analysis out there showing that more than half of it goes to those kinds of leadership positions. So for all those members who supported it, they might want to think, gosh, am I really going to get the earmark anyway? Because it tends to go, again, not on a merit-based systematic process, but based on who the committee chair is or who the ranking member is. And then finally, I would say we had the bridge to nowhere. So we've had these abuses before, and we're likely to see them again. And by the way, that bridge to nowhere was sponsored by a very powerful member of the Senate who had an important committee assignment on the Appropriations Committee. So it just doesn't make any sense, particularly at this time, Larry.
Look at, what about campaign contributors? You know, they have a vested interest, especially when you start talking infrastructure. Now, whatever this bill is going to be, more welfare, Green New Deal, it will have bridges, roads, and tunnels in it someplace, I guess. And I think a lot of contributors get in the way, Senator Portman, and that's another reason why I admire your stance.
Well, you know, there's always going to be that appearance of a conflict if there is any connection there, and you know that's not what we need either. Our image right now is not something that can afford even more issues like that. So my hope is that we make a decision here in the Senate not to pursue it. And you know, I think at the end of the day, when you have a conference committee between the House and the Senate, if they have earmarks and we don't, hopefully you knock out the earmarks, and therefore you have less spending. Now,
I will say this. I spoke at some length to one of the House leaders after that conference vote. So naturally, I said, why? So this person said to me, I guess, two major things. Number one, we're not increasing spending because that's already in the budget resolution. And number two, members believe they should allocate, not unelected bureaucrats. They kind of singled out the Army Corps of Engineers. That's an old saw. But those are the two reasons that were given to me. What's your take on those 2 points?
Well, I would take you back to your days at the Office of Management and Budget when you were an associate director and where I served as director later. The Army Corps does have a process, but it's merit-based, and you may not always agree with it because maybe your project doesn't get as much funding as others, and sometimes I've been frustrated. But they do have a system where they rank projects based on how much they're going to be helping the community to avoid flooding or whatever the issue is. So would you rather have that, some merit-based process, or just some member says, because of my committee position, I want the money to go there? I don't think that makes sense. And by the way, this notion that it's all in the budget, the budget would be less if there were fewer earmarks. When I was at OMB, I remember we had $10 billion of earmarks in the defense budget, $10 billion. And, when you were there, it probably wasn't quite as bad because it grew exponentially over the decade kind of before I got there, which would have been the late 1990s into the 2000s.
I mean, Stockman and I and others tried to stop him then. We weren't successful. It came later.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right, Senator. And you know what? It's the culture, it seems to me, right? It's a cultural thing, and it's the culture of spending. Even, I hate to say it, the culture of corruption. These are things to be avoided. These are things to be stopped.
Yeah. Best to avoid it, even the appearance.
I'm with you. Anyway, folks, you just heard a true American patriot. No
I don't know about that,
earmarks
Larry, but
from the
but
senator.
always good to
from
be on with
Ohio.
you. By the way, I have to make a comment on the direct payments because, as you know, I had concerns about that, needed to be more targeted on people who really needed it. There's a study out by Raj Chetty, I'm sure you have seen, which indicates that if you make more than 75 grand a year, and remember people making families up to 150 are getting this, only $105 based on his analysis is likely to be spent. In other words, it was a stimulus bill, and so the notion was people should get out and spend the money. But in fact, notwithstanding what you said about Las Vegas, most of this money isn't spent, it's saved. And so it doesn't even have the stimulative effect that you would want to have.
Not surprising. It should have been much more carefully targeted. That's my take.
To those who need it, to those who were affected negatively by COVID-19.
That was your take, too. And President Biden didn't listen to you. You all went in there to talk to him, and then, as I understand it, you never heard from him again.
Yeah, not a surprise.
All right. Senator Rob Portman, I'll say it again.
Thanks, Larry.
A great American patriot.
Hope to see you soon. Take
All
care.
right, see you soon. Now,